Welcome back to Arc Salt Lake on your Wednesday morning. It is now 7:16. Screen time with kids can really be a challenge, especially when school is out for the summer. Sometimes it can be hard to find other activities to balance out using all of those electronics. Right now we have Kara Duraccio, who's a child psychologist and writes curriculum for the good and the beautiful for suggestions. Kara, thank you for being with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right, let's talk about screen time during the summer. Kids are out of school, obviously. You would hope they're outside playing, but in fact, they are probably looking at screens a lot more than we'd like, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, research studies have shown that most kids actually increase screen use during the summer. And I think that does go contrary to what we envision for kids in the summer. We hope that they're out, they're playing with friends, but we do find that screen use goes up during the summer months.
Why is it? Is it just easy? I mean, look, I know it's addictive. I know that as an
Yeah.
adult. I like watching my phones and scrolling through TikTok and Instagram. But is it just also the easy route for perhaps a lot of parents?
Yeah, I definitely think there's something to do with that. I think it's not just reinforcing for kids, but it is reinforcing for parents. I know that about 64% of Utah households have both parents working during the summer. And so there's something to be said about being able to say, oh, I know my kids are contained, they're watching a show, it's a little bit out of our hair, like if they're working from home. And so it has reinforcing properties both for parents and for kids.
What's too much? Is there a way to quantify that?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I think it's been a question that's been on the minds of psychologists and developmental psychologists for decades now. And for a while, they were really trying hard to come up with like the set no more than blank hours a day. And I think what we've shifted away from is like a global recommendation to more looking at your child within a 24-hour day and saying, what do we know are the non-negotiables for good development in kids? And are screens taking my child away from that? And if the answer is yes, that's probably too much. So, for example, non negotiables would be getting adequate sleep. School age kids need 9 to 11 hours of sleep. But if a kid's staying up late at night watching shows, and it's detracting from that, then we know that that's now unhealthy screen use. But things like physical activity, unstructured play, getting outside, reading, learning activities, these are those things we want to see in a child's day. And we want to be mindful of whether or not screen-based play or activities are taking away from those specific growth opportunities.
Okay, so what are some good strategies for parents to try and tackle this problem, try to reverse it even just a little bit?
Yeah, I love this question. I think starting with just having an open conversation with families. Let's come up together with that list of this is what we want included in our day. What do we need to do in order to tell ourselves we're ready to watch screens, we're ready to engage in screen-based play? So, for example, as a mom, I like to sit down with my kids and say, okay, let's look at our morning routine. What do we want to tackle? What do we want to engage? What do we want to see before we know, hey, let's go watch a little show? And for my kids, that includes things like, let's get outside and play. We're going to read in the morning. We're going to do a little bit of learning. And if at the end of the morning we've got time left over, we'll watch a little bit of a show. But what I love about this approach is often kids get so caught up in play. I say, go play outside for a little bit. And in their minds, they might think, oh, mom wants me to play outside for 10 minutes. And then they find friends. And before you know it, hours have passed. And so just really encouraging, saying, we want to see these things. And if we see these things, then that tells us we're probably in a safe place to engage in some screens.
Is it hard for parents to overcome this? How difficult of a task is this?
I always say that the hardest part is the initial change, right? Because we slide into these habits and screens are reinforcing, right? If we look at neurotransmitters in the brain like dopamine is a plenty when we're watching screens. And so when you initially take that away from children, you have to expect what we call in the field of psychology an extinction burst. Kids are going to exhibit bigger behaviors temporarily before it gets better. And so I say, give it a week or two of implementing a new approach. And sometimes families find like having a full, like, we're just not going to watch screens for a week, or we're just going to, I'm going to use the word detox here. We're going to detox, for a week or two and then implement this new plan. They find that after a few days, kids turn the corner and suddenly we see a reduction in that burst of big behaviors as we've been taking away those screens.
Does being a good, excuse me, a good role model in this avenue, does this also factor
Yes.
into this? Look, I don't have
Oh, yeah.
kids, but I know as an adult how much I'm looking at my own screen. So I
Yes.
imagine parents are doing the same too. So is this a part of it? 'Cause sometimes you have to change your own behavior.
100%. I resonate with this as a mom. When I hold screen time limits with my children and then I pull out my phone, my kids are very quick to tell me, you need to practice what you preach. I love this. And I actually love it as a way to normalize this with children and say, hey, listen, you've seen me. Sometimes I get sucked into my phone. This is something as a family we're all going to work on together. So whatever rules we're putting in place for you, we're going to put in place for ourselves. And for children, that's really important because they want to see the world as fair and equitable. And so, if everybody's joining in on these family based screen rules, you're going to find engagement and willingness to engage in them goes up.
So I asked you how difficult this is, but coming from the kids' perspective specifically, is it pretty quick to kind of change habits in kids if you're really going about this the right way?
Yes, the more consistent you are, the faster you're going to find these habits start to reverse. And that's why I, as a child psychologist, love working with kids. Is it's so empowering to see how quickly children adapt and adjust to new rules or situations, especially when parents and those around them are consistent and follow through. So I say, if you're feeling like, okay, today's the day we're going to make a change. Just give it your all. Give it your all for 1 week, maybe 2 weeks, and you're going to find your children adapts and adjusts and thrives with these new screen-based strategies.
When it comes to parents who they want to embark on this, maybe their kids really do have a screen time problem. Let's give them some tips on what they can do outside, even if it's just simple things, but still we want to get those ideas in their brain.
Yes, and I think this is probably what's scary is you go, if not screens, then what? What am I going to fill my kids' day with? And this is something I love working with the Good and the Beautiful homeschool curriculum. If you go to their webpage, their blog, they have a plethora of free activities, summer bucket lists, ideas of how to set the stage for unstructured and structured play. And it really helps give parents like something tangible to hold on to say, what are we going to do as this first step? So let's use the bucket list, for example. I love they have a 101 activity, summer activity bucket list. And you can just say, okay, kids, let's look at this list. What do we want to do today? And then helping encouraging that bucket list. And they're all very affordable. So I love encouraging families to kind of check out those resources if they're finding themselves feeling stuck of, if not screens, then what?
Let me ask you about the Good and the Beautiful. For those who have not heard of it, what is that exactly?
So it's a homeschool curriculum, but it's so much more than that. I really think about it as like a mecca of resources for parents to foster good development in children. So, for example, one summer-based activity that I love to encourage, especially throughout the summer months, is reading, and they have so many free resources, free reading materials for children that they can engage in and continue to kind of foster that development in summer months when sometimes we have this view of taking it easy and stepping back. But just really think about it as a learning resource, a developmental resource for all children, whether or not they're homeschooled, to help increase development in children.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if it's a homeschool curriculum, but you don't need to have your child be
No,
homeschooled to
absolutely
take
not.
advantage of some of these strategies, right?
Yeah, I would recommend it to every family. I'm truly overwhelmed by how many free resources are available, free activities, free reading materials, free lists, free instructional guides that they give to parents and to children to help them thrive.
Kara, why is excessive screen time? Why is it such an issue?
There's a lot of things we could dive into. We could talk about it from like a neurodevelopmental standpoint. If we look at the brains of children who engage in screens regularly, often throughout the day, and it is subtracting from some of these other developmental activities we know they need to be doing, we see structural brain changes. We see less neural activation in brain regions that are responsible for things like planning and organizing and executing and persisting with tasks. For me, I think about this world requires effort and it requires struggle, right? And screens are reinforcing because you get a lot for very little effort. So for example, if a child is playing on a tablet, all they have to do is press the screen and there's a big reaction.
Okay.
And now let's say we put that tablet away and we say, go play. They have to persist with a play-based activity for 5, 10, 15 minutes before they kind of get that same sense of resolution. And so they're less likely to persist with tasks. And we want our kids, we want them to go out and be willing to work hard and persist and put in effort and struggle and learn that those things are important. And that's where I feel like the danger lies in screens, is we just inherently teach kids to expect a lot for nothing.
Okay.
And we want to see the opposite.
All right, child psychologist Kara Duraccio, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we certainly appreciate it.
Yes, it's been a delight.
All right, have a good one.